how often will people speak your name and remember you with being a man of integrity, with a man of honor that has done something to perpetuate this message to the next generation? You're listening to the Building Men podcast with Dennis and Anthony Miralda, brothers on a mission
to help you become the strongest version of yourself, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and physically.
This is our 100th episode on the Building Men podcast. I'm joined by my brother Anthony. What's up, bro?
Let's see if I can get the camera right. 100. We're back, baby. We did it. Holy smokes.
Smokes. Holy
Dude.
smokes.
Dude.
100 episodes, man. This is it's exciting.
Frick yeah, it is.
We just went back and listened to podcast episode number 4. That was on July 11th of 2020, titled The 5 Pillars of Fitness. So let's take a walk down memory lane today. There's no guesses, just you and I sitting in the studio together, and we're going to take a walk down memory lane in the past year and a half since we started the podcast. So we'll start there. We'll start with episode 4, The 5 Pillars of Masculinity. What do you remember about that day?
I remember taking a Xanax at 8:30 in the morning so I can go and speak in your foyer, the little room over there with a mic. And I was so nervous. Yeah. I didn't want to come. I didn't want to come over because I was free. My hands were clammy. I was having like a panic attack, and we were sitting almost on each other's laps with a mic in between us.
Yes. The phallic-shaped mic.
Yes. Yeah.
Who's
like
the guy?
Robot dildo in between.
Who's the guy that became famous? The big black dude sitting on the edge of the bed that was just fucking. He was
like the
like a
Mandingo.
horse.
He became famous after he died. It's such a shame.
Right. It was basically his Johnson. That it was the microphone. That's kind of the microphone setup in between the two of us.
I know we don't want to go down this route, but I always am curious if like he struggled with finding relationships, because how many people? I mean, I don't know how that obviously how that works, but I'm like, there's no way that I mean, it doesn't seem to make sense that could actually work with someone. I don't know. Anyway, the 5 pillars of fitness was it was so uncomfortable. I hated every second of that, and I kept talking like I was like a robot. I wrote down everything I was going to say, to the pauses,
right,
to there was not one thing that was authentic about that. That was the most inauthentic thing I've ever done in my life, and you could hear it. And if you listen to it, which I invite everyone to go back and listen to the 5 pillars of fitness, and you can get a real feel for that. We taped an hour of it, and we got 11 minutes.
Right.
Because so we just had to keep going on Audacity and cutting up everything because I kept fucking it up.
We both did, though. We both fucked up. And we even put in the jokes that we were going to say. So he sounded really
and you're like, oh, I'll say that. Let's try it again. And then insert laugh.
One of us was talking, and we'd have to stop. Say you fucked up in the middle. You go, oh, fuck, I'm so fucking stupid. I can't believe I just said that. And I'm like, oh, well, we'll cut that out. I wish I had the audio saved from that initial one where it took us an hour, it took us 60 minutes to get through 11 minutes of recording time on that.
That would have been amazing if you saved that. I wish you still had that, because I want to listen back to how we laughed a lot. That was a good time. But
we did, just not on, you couldn't tell that we had a good time.
Yeah.
It felt like we were going to get a rectal examination. Like that, if that had an audio to it,
God,
that's what it would sound like.
God. It looked like as I was speaking, you were taking the microphone, and you were slowly putting it up my butthole as we were talking. That's how I was so puckered up the entire time.
Yes.
Oh God, I hated that, dude. I hated that.
So the second episode that we recorded together was at your place. It was called Intentional Discomfort, and that one it actually sounded a little bit more authentic. It was more of us. We had a couple drinks in us that second episode that we recorded.
Oh, wait, this is the one that was after we went on the hike.
Yes.
That was the one where we were banged up for that.
So we had a couple drinks in us, and we cursed a couple times, and I had not cursed on the podcast before that. That wasn't something. And I remember thinking, should I release that episode? I don't know if this is okay for me to curse during this time. And we released it, and that was one turning point with the podcast, being able to let our guard down a little bit and just flow with it. sounded a little bit more natural, a little bit more conversational in nature. And we just talked about the importance of intentional discomfort. It was good.
And we let loose for the first time. We actually had this moment of like, we don't need a script. And that was the first time that we didn't write anything down. You were like, oh, I want to talk about this. So we had like 6 IPAs that were like 8%, and then we just started talking. And it was so cathartic when we had those moments of where we could just release everything and not have to worry about, oh, don't say fuck, don't say this, don't do that, stay within this little, box that we created, because that's the narrative we want to push as we're doing this, and it just gave us so much freedom.
Yes. And those first 2 episodes, we had, I brought you along, and we would talk about a specific topic, fitness, intentional discomfort, and that's when we first started recording. An episode was called resiliency. One episode was called accountability. It was like that. And then we started to switch it a little bit. The next one that you were on was episode 39, on overcoming mental hurdles and the unorthodox approach to six-pack abs. Now, this was the one when I moved into my place where I was in one room, I was in the sunroom, and then you were up in Denny's room or Jules's room or something.
Yeah, I was in Denny's room.
And that's when you were drinking the tequila.
I was having, out of a coffee mug. And
you started to talk a lot about anxiety, about depression, about your experience with public speaking, and how you overcame a lot of that shit. But as you're talking about it, overcoming the mental hurdles associated with anxiety and depression, you were freaking out. That was a tough podcast for you to get through. And meanwhile, I'm asking you to do voices. I'm asking you to do...
Yeah, you were pulling everything out of me. Like, as I said that I didn't want to do that or talk about that, you just did it, and I had to just roll with it because we already started videoing it. And that was... Again, it's amazing because like I'm talking about all these. I'm having trouble switching the cameras around. I'm talking about all of these things that I'm overcoming, and as I'm doing that, I'm hammered, right? Like, so you think about that and that in itself, and so it's just amazing to see how far that I've come from that moment, being in Denny's, your son's room, drinking a half a bottle of tequila so that I could have a conversation with my brother about me. Right? Like, if you really think about that, that's insane.
Yep. And we go from there to, then it became more of a regular thing. It was like every other week you were coming on as a guest. This is when I was just finishing up doing solo podcasts, understanding how do we go about doing a podcast where I'm actually interviewing someone over Zoom. That was not something I knew how to do. So even rewind a little bit further back to the start of the podcast, I remember one of the big things that happened was I first bought that blue journal. And what I decided to do was I was on a flight going from Philly or Jersey down to Florida. And I bought this book and I wrote down 52 different topics that I could talk about for Building Men, thinking that I would record the podcast episodes and then write a book about all these different things. So it was about overcoming fear. It was about reframing failure. It was about the poem If. It was about intentional discomfort, things like that. And I said, all right, I'm going to start this podcast. And I remember, so that the book was the first thing that I bought. And the second thing was that microphone that we had just referenced, Big Barry's microphone. So that was the second thing that I bought. And I remember now it became, okay, I just invested $150 in something to record this podcast. Now you have to do it. So there was a piece to it. Now it was no longer something that I would put up on the shelf and look at. It was no longer just this pipe dream or goal. Now I invested something in it. And there's something to be said about putting financial backing behind whatever the idea is. Investing in a coach, purchasing something, a new microphone, whatever it is. But there's that level of accountability because you put some finances behind whatever it was. And in the beginning of the podcast, it was very scripted. We just talked about it. It was very much I wrote out everything beforehand, and I pretty much read it, trying to make it sound conversational in nature. But it really didn't. It definitely didn't sound conversational. It was very, white guy dancing, kind of thing.
Yeah. Not to the beat of the music.
Not to the beat of the music. So as we were going along this journey, I recognized Building Men became something that I was speaking to myself in a lot of these episodes. I was talking to me about things that I needed to hear about, so I would do some research around it. Going back and listening, I was like, I needed that piece of advice. I needed to hear this from me saying it to help me get through whatever it was. And I think about you going through the journey of not being able to speak in a public setting from that very beginning to where you've come to now. It's night and day. A year and a half later, you're very comfortable in front of the microphone. You're recording live videos on Instagram. You're interviewing guests. So it's been a pretty cool journey for me to watch you go on the last year and a half as well.
Yeah, it's been such an up and down roller coaster ride with me, and I'm at a point right now where today, it might be like, it was yesterday, but it was 2 months that I'm not on any antidepressants or anything, which I tried to do this before, and I had a mental breakdown. This is the first time that I'm off this and not having to be on camera using any substances, being able to speak to people without being reliant on anything. And the reason is because I dove in head first to all of this. And I just kept doing it over and over and over again. And at first I didn't see it, and I couldn't understand how I was going to do this, and it felt so uncomfortable. But the more that I did it, I just became more comfortable. The more I found my own way of speaking and talking and what worked for me. But in the beginning, it was a constant battle. I would get nervous every time we would talk. Every single time we would have our conversations, I would have like a mini anxiety attack being there. And I was so worried about how I sounded, how I looked. No, like, and at that point, we had like 14 followers. Right. You know what I mean? And yes. I'm like, and fast forward to now, we're in a studio and I'm in front of a microphone with lights, and we're interviewing people who are, you know, multimillionaires with hundreds of thousands of people following them, and they're following us. We have a crowd that we're talking to now, and I'm so much more comfortable than I've ever been before. Yeah, it's wild. And thinking about that journey that you've gone on, the journey that I've gone on, and even collaboratively trying to figure out the best way for it to work between the two of us. Obviously, we have a good rapport together. We're brothers. We're best friends. We've experienced so much shit in our lives together. But doing this, it doesn't just flow. Like, we had to work through it and figure out the best way for it to work with both of us. So we did that as there were some episodes that you came on to. We did them via Zoom, and we would talk about a couple different topics. And I go back and I listen to them, and they're funny. We had a lot of good conversations. The drop over and the broken mirror was episode 42. We did there was one about the big salad. That was a good one. We did the power of compassion, strength, compassion and strength, the mother's role in defining masculinity, that we did for Mother's Day for last year. That was a really cool episode as well. So we've done some cool collaborative episodes that are just you and I until we got into the studio. We did masculine identity with the crocodile. That was another. So now look at that moment. And I was so nervous going into that too, because now we're our studio. We were actually in the studio for the first time, and that's like ESPN style studio. Yes. That's not like here we're in like a little back room somewhere. That was like we were on a stage and have someone working with us to do the cameras and everything. And I was like, oh my god, this is my biggest fear right now. Yes. And I fucking did it. It was nuts. It was like I was scary as hell, but I got out of there and I'm like, holy shit, like that was. And we had to pay money to get into that studio, a couple $100 to get into that studio. And I remember we thought so deeply about how we were going to do the intro, and we recorded the intro. Yeah. And we like walked by each other, we high-fived, and then I smacked your ass as we were walking. Dude, by. That was amazing. I forgot about how long we spent. We got suits. We showed up with suits so we could record a 3.5-second video that we don't use anymore. Right. And then they slowed it down, and the sound of me smacking your ass. And I'm like, you were like, ooh. But that's like that's why I think our humor is so good, is because I don't know many people that highlight that shit. Like, we could go on a tangent about random crap that it's like Seinfeld in real life. You know, I feel like that's what we do, and we find something and then we hyper focus on it, and we just keep talking and beating it to death all the time. Beating it to death. So speaking of, you and I hung out with Danny on Saturday night. The three of us went out to Chicken Pete's, watched some football, and we sat on the couch. We watched the movie The Program from 1993 with Jimmy Caan. Put the women and children to bed and go looking for fucking dinner, baby. And it's so funny when we watching that movie, and I remember thinking that movie as I watched it when I was a junior in high school or sophomore in high school. It was amazing. Like, I was like, oh my god, this movie was so.
Jimmy Kahn is the worst coach in the history. He was so bad as a coach.
So bad.
No motivation. He was basically shaming all the athletes.
Yeah.
It was just
Yeah, we were like, what is his role? Like, what is he doing? He flips over the table with Gatorade on it and calls someone an asshole, and then...
But so we're in that moment, again, beating the dead horse. We're hanging out on Saturday night, and I'm talking to Denny and I were driving down the street, and there was a dude walking up Union Street by himself, double masked, just walking alone in fresh air with 2 masks on. And I said, there needs to be some level of accountability or martial law. There needs to be some justice that we can impart on people that we see walking down the street wearing 2 masks in fresh air. I said, I don't think it's appropriate for us to shoot a BB gun at them. I think that's a little too much. And I don't think a Nerf bullet does enough.
Not going to do enough
damage. So we came up with 2 other options that we thought were appropriate.
Yeah, so which by the way, it just, even when you said it, I still got that same like feeling, and I'm just like, and I don't want to be mad at, do whatever you want, but at the same time, don't do whatever you want. Like, I'm sorry. Like, no.
As long as it doesn't impact me, but that impacts me.
That impacts me. It's like people wearing fucking pajama pants who are grown-ass men, and it's 4 o'clock on a Tuesday. I'm like, you know what, dude? I'm sorry. That's not okay.
It's not
anyway,
acceptable.
We came up with the idea that something needs to be thrown at them, obviously, and it can't be, and it has to be a fruit, because I think that has a little give to it, so it's not going to, like, really hurt them. At first we thought of an apple, but that's too big, and you could really get some leverage behind it, right? So then we came up with the clementine idea, which that's got a little cushion to it, so it's like, all right. And obviously dependent on who's throwing it. If you're an athlete, you fucking crow hop up, and I could throw a zinger at somebody's neck and do, like, that'll leave a welt, dude, if I get a little running start. So then we're thinking it has to be like a dart throw, like a push throw, right? Yeah. So you got to go from here and then, like, kind of throw it forward like that.
Like a shot.
Like a shot put little throw with a clementine, right?
Close range clementine.
Close range clementine, or, this was my idea, give them an old spitball. When was the last time you've done that? And honestly, it's perfect for them because they're, you know, quote unquote, trying to be safe and avoiding all human contact. And I just fucking lay a wet, like, a wet napkin on their fucking neck. That's beautiful. I mean, I think that would really, I think that's our duty to do that. We're doing a disservice by not hitting people with clementines who are double masking on the street by themselves outside for no reason.
And I endorse the use of the straw for the spitball. I'm not a big straw guy. I don't use a straw. No, that's not something I typically do.
It's like you're sucking a little schwartz. Yeah. What about? Have you seen? They have metal straws now. I'm just thinking for spitballs, not for consumption of liquids. You should.
Or there's those cardboard straws or the paper straws. I tried one of those and they disintegrate in your mouth.
Stop it.
Oh my God.
Let's just ruin the world. I'd rather have a plastic straw.
There's so many other things that we can
turtles.
do.
Yeah.
Right, that we can do to save our environment rather than using cardboard fucking straws.
I'm not having a wet
disintegrates
piece of cardboard in my mouth.
It's horrible.
And I think that one of our bets should be the person who loses has to drink every beverage with a straw. A beer, everything.
With a cardboard
and we need to bring I will buy you 1,000 cardboard straws and wherever you go.
To you.
Right, depending on what it is.
Done. That's our next bet, without a doubt. So you have to have a travel pack of cardboard or paper straws with you at all times.
Oh, that's so good.
So you're mentioning how we could, beat a dead horse or talk about something in a different direction. The other thing that we talked about that night was when people drive in their car and they have their little dog on their lap and the dog licks inside of their face.
Throw a mask on them too with the dog in the car.
God. That's one where that's a danger to society. It's not just really annoying seeing that happen, but when people have a lap dog driving and it's not good. It's not okay. And you should lose your license for 2 weeks. Yes. And just think about it. Think about what you did there.
Think about what you did and how you impacted others by doing what you did. It's inappropriate. It's wrong. It's evil, in my opinion. I mean, I see those people and I'm like, who are you helping by doing that? You're creating a little victim dog that's sitting there and eating out of your mouth, and then you're not focused on the road. You don't know what the hell you're doing. Oh my God, it makes me so angry. And especially a dog with like a little Yorkie looking thing, and like, yeah, with a sweater on and some mittens, and like, it's not a doll. It's a friggin' animal. Whether you like it or not, they could figure it out on their own. The reason why they can't is because we over domesticated these friggin' animals, and that's, yeah, that strikes a chord for me.
It got you going. So we back to the reminiscent down memory lane spot. After that, we got into the studio. We did a couple episodes there, and then we came into where we're currently recording from. And our first time in here, we actually did an episode with Joel Glotfelty from Finish the Race. So we did back-to-back episodes with him. It was Whatever It Takes, and then Finish the Race were the 2 back-to-back episodes. And it was cool being in studio. And actually, we have a couple live events coming up where we will have people in studio. I think we have 3 over the next 3 weeks. We'll be recording them, and they'll be released at some point in January. But having that dynamic of having people face to face is a really cool dynamic. I'm really looking forward to that. But having mentioned that, I look back over the last year and a half from where it started with Building Men. It was an idea that I had as a middle school principal to help young men understand what masculinity means, to going on this journey. That's certainly a part of what we're doing, but we're also helping just human beings understand what masculinity means, what it means to be a man. And we've come up with our own working definition of masculinity during the last year and a half based on our own experiences, based on people that we have talked to, people that we have interviewed, people that have reached out to us, to really hone in on what we believe masculinity means. And the people that we have been introduced to, it's really rewarding in a way. I think about this network that we have now. And we had a meeting this morning with Austin Linney from Construct Your Life podcast and the Brain Dump podcast, and Chase Tollison, who does the Primal Man Pathways podcast. And we're doing this event with them, which think about a year and a half ago, if somebody told you that Building Men would turn into a spot where we would be doing a live retreat for men in Lake Tahoe, I would say that you're absolutely crazy. There's no, I didn't see how we can get from where we started to that is a possibility in our lives right now. And it actually happened. We booked our first sale for it. We have one person joined up to it yesterday before it's even on sale. Yeah. Before it's even out. We're not actually releasing it until January 1st officially. So we had our soft opening to it, and somebody booked into it. I was really humbled, amazed by it, and I look back on the last year and a half with such reverence and such gratitude for the journey we've gone on.
And that, not that you look for this, but sometimes it's nice to get that validation when you have people who are willing to go with you on this retreat and they buy into what you're doing. It's like, I know we're onto something.
Yes.
I know we would do this no matter what, money in our pocket or not. But when you get that first buy-in, you're like, man, this is real. This is happening. And I have to pinch myself sometimes, again, just looking at recording in your living room with the mic between us to, again, where we are now, and looking how we're working with these badass, successful dudes and people reaching out to us to come on our podcast, and us doing retreats and helping more people than I could ever imagine. If I can help one person by us speaking, I'm happy. And now I think we're helping hundreds of thousands of people by what we're doing.
Yeah, it's such a rewarding thing. There are times that I sit back and I get emotional thinking about everything that we've gone through over the last year and have both of us individually as brothers in our own family dynamics and relationships, the ups and downs, the times that we didn't think we could possibly make it work. There were times that I was like, I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills next month because I bet on Building Men. How is it going to possibly work out? So part of the journey as well has been understanding what we're capable of as human beings if we have that belief in ourselves. And a lot of it is coming from how we're speaking to ourselves. We talked about it a whole lot on the podcast. It's absolutely true. When you don't believe in what you're doing, you're going to see things that will validate your disbelief. But we talk about what if the good shit happens? What if the good things happen in your life and the positive things happen? If we start to look down that path of, instead of thinking about the negative things, what if the good shit? Not in a toxic positivity way that Zach Alexander talked about, but more in a way that you believe in yourself and what you're capable of doing. and believe that those good things are going to happen. And then the little setbacks will happen from time to time, as is life. And, it's not always roses and rainbows. But if you what if the good stuff? What if that good shit happens? I would rather believe that that's the good stuff anyway, because then, as you're performing your day-to-day activities and functions, if the good stuff is on your mind, you're in a better mood that day, and you show up in a better way for other people in your life as well.
And you look at it and like the repercussions from inaction, right? We never think about that. At least for myself, I struggle with this all the time. And again, like you just said, the what if it doesn't work? What if this happens? What if I fail? What if people know that I'm a fraud or I'm an imposter or this? Okay, so what happens if I go all in? What's the worst that happens? I'm going to be right back in the same position that I'm in with more clarity.
Yeah.
That's the only difference. And so once you can, like you said, change that way of thinking, change how you speak to yourself, and watch how your life starts to pave its own pathway. It's, again, your goals and everything. The fog starts to part, and you could finally see what you want in life when you could just start to change the way that you speak. And that's why the Enlifted thing for you was so powerful.
Absolutely.
And the Training Camp for the Soul thing was so powerful for me. It gives you the tools to see that and to make you realize that there's something out there for you, but you just need to get rid of that, negative self-talk in your head.
Mark Twain, there's a quote, I don't have it exactly in my head, but it's something along the lines of, that he has several problems in his mind or in his life, most of which have never happened or will never happen. Thinking about how many things we build up in a negative way in our head, thinking about what's going to happen if fill in the blank here, and most of that shit doesn't ever happen. So it's easy to say. It's a lot harder to do, to let those thoughts come in and flow by and pass. But if you can fill your head with the good things that could possibly happen, it's a nicer space to live. We also, real quick, we wanted this to be a quicker episode, just to say thank you to the audience for tuning in. I remember releasing the first episode July 1st of 2020. It was called The Decision, and how nervous I was recording that first solo episode. And I remember looking at where you get the stats on everything, and I remember getting the first download of the podcast and getting all excited like somebody downloaded. And I think the first episode got over the 20 downloads or something. And I think that's just because people are like, all right, Dennis sent this to me, let me just take a look at it. But the first several, we were getting 6 and 8 and 12 perhaps. And now, we're up, we have tens of thousands of downloads on the podcast, which is really amazing that it's going on. So we wanted to take an opportunity to, if you're listening to this right now, thank you. We truly appreciate it. We're two dudes, two brothers that, get together and bullshit, talk to some really interesting people. Hopefully our message is resonating with you in some deep way. So we are truly grateful that you are spending time listening to us once or twice a week. It definitely is. It's heartwarming. As we're entering this holiday season right now, I really feel a level of gratitude to anyone who's listening right now.
Yeah, and giving us that space to be able to do this and do what we love.
Yep.
And hopefully provide people with some value. At the end of the day, if we're not, yes, part of me is doing it for me, but also in the long game, I want to serve others. That's my purpose in life.
Yep. There was a spot a week and a half ago right now, where I got some challenging news, and I had a choice to either go into this sulky, sad spot, which I would have done in the past. Instead, I went in the other direction, and I said, I want to do something to give back to other people from this journey that I've gone on. So we created this event. We called it the Pillars of Masculinity, and it's a free event. We're targeting young men that are in that high school into early college time frame that are looking for some type of direction in their life. It's a free event, December 28th. We'll put information into the show notes about it. You could also find it on our Instagram page called the Pillars of Masculinity. And we asked several of the men that we have interviewed during the course of our time on the podcast to send us in a 1 or 2 minute video clip just giving advice to young men that are in that time frame in their life, say between 15 and 20 years old. What piece of advice would they give? And it's in a million different directions. And we didn't specify it in any other way, but that what could you say to someone that will help the next generation benefit from that piece of advice? And the response has been overwhelming. I sent it out. We had 20 different guys respond immediately. Absolutely, tell me what you need. I would be happy to do so. So that's one thing that's coming up. So look for that if you're interested. I think we set it to 400 spots were available. We haven't even publicized it yet, and there's been almost 100 people that have signed up for it just from us sharing it out with other people.
400 might not be enough. Right. You know what I mean? Like it's to that point.
Yep.
And we have such a, again, badass group of guys who are involved with that. It's going to be unbelievable.
Yep, absolutely. So when you think about guys that we've had on the podcast, Matthew Pates, having Angelo Cisco, Austin Linney, Chase Tollison, all these men, Josh Trent, Mike Salemi, giving a piece of advice, speaking to kids in that high school, early college time frame. What an unbelievable experience and value for someone, totally for free. So if you're interested, there's a Calendly link. You can sign up or direct message either me or Anthony to find out more information about that. Again, no charge. We just want to help people along in that journey. That's one big thing coming up. The other thing is the Hero's Journey. We had mentioned that retreat that will be April 28th, Thursday night, April 28th through Sunday, May 1st. It's 4 days, 3 nights in Lake Tahoe. We'll be doing that with Austin Linney and Chase Tollison. So reach out to us for more information. We'll be publicizing that soon. If you sign up before January 1st, it's a $500 discount. All you need to do is get yourself to Lake Tahoe to where the hotel is. Everything else is paid for while you're there. And a couple cool things you get. There will be a personalized journal that we'll be using on the retreat for the Hero's Journey. You'll get a Hero's Journey t-shirt that's sponsored by Finish the Race Apparel, who also does the Building Men apparel. And you will get a personalized handmade steel mace from Become Stronger Industries, our other sponsors. So all these things coming together in one location.
You're gonna earn that steel mace.
You will earn the steel mace, and you will. It's a lot of cool stuff. And the workshop will be around. It'll be around our identity. It'll be around story work that we're doing. There'll be a physical fitness. There's a high ropes adventure course that's there.
We're doing it all.
It's really unbelievable.
The hotel itself is worth it to go. But on top of that, you're getting coaching from 4 different people, all in expertise in all different areas. And again, the experience that's coming along with it is it's going to be unbelievable. I mean, I'm so excited for it.
And not only that, we have Paul Roseberry, the comedian that came on. He's doing a show for us on Saturday night, April 30th. So he will be there doing a live show. We're also going to be doing live podcasts from the event and interviewing the men that come to the event live on all of our podcasts. So It's just this unbelievable experience.
Because we look at a lot of retreats are just, they're all work and there's no play involved. And I think as men, we need time to kind of kick our feet up and have fun. And so there's going to be a mixture of both. You're going to bust your ass, but then you're going to be able to have this relaxing, fun time and be able to bullshit with the guys and
make connections, network. Absolutely. So that if you're interested in that, you could send a direct message to Building Men on Instagram, building.men, Buildingmencoach at Gmail. Also, really quickly, let's talk about working with people in a one-on-one capacity. So not only are we doing the work with Building Men, with this Pillars of Masculinity program, with the Hero's Journey Retreat, we're also taking on individual coaching clients. The people that I will be primarily working with are those guys that are in that mid-30s to late 40s, early 50 time frame, where you're feeling lost or stuck, or you might have just gone through a separation or divorce and you're trying to reacclimate to life the way it is now. Things that I have specifically gone through over the last year or two of my life and understand what it takes to rebuild when you're in that down, difficult spot. So I'll be working with coaching clients. If you're interested in working with me, please feel free to reach out to me. I just mentioned how. And then you're working with individual coaching clients as well. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I work with people mainly in early 20s, mid 30s, who are just feeling kind of stuck in their life and not knowing their purpose, not knowing what the next step is. You have all these tools, but you don't know what to do with it in that moment. People struggling with anxiety, depression, knowing how to cope with that, and mechanisms that are outside of taking drugs and drinking alcohol, right?
Everything you've done. And
yes, listen, I've done it all.
A gigantic microphone,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. I've done everything wrong that you possibly can, so that's how I think it gives me the platform to be able to speak on this stuff. And I do it through nutrition and physical activity, movement. that's my main focus, but the goal of it is to peel back the layers and figure out who you are and what your purpose is in life.
So as we're concluding here, it's ceremonial that we're finishing up our 100th episode. So this episode will publish on December 7th. We're going to get it out tomorrow, December 7th, 2021, and a year and a half from when the first podcast was released. Cool journey we've gone on. Again, we're truly grateful to everyone who's out there listening. If you haven't done so yet, please rate and review the podcast on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. It helps get the message out there when there are more ratings and reviews on it. Also, if this message resonates with you in any way, consider sharing it with someone who might benefit from the Building Men message, even if they just want to listen and hear us bullshit and talk about straws and spitballs and close-range clementines.
If you think it'll piss somebody off, listen, if you know someone who's wearing a mask outside by themselves, send this to them. Do us a favor. Do everyone a favor. Know that clementines are coming for them. We're coming in hard. Fucking spitball. So before we get off, I think the audience wants to know, how would you, after speaking to all of these people up until this moment, how would you now define masculinity?
What a great question. I look at it in this almost like a Venn diagram. And so there's several circles that would come together into this sweet spot in the Venn diagram. One is strength, and not just physical strength. I think there's a portion of it, where you need to be taking care of yourself physically, also mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Like, what are you doing to better yourself? So there's that strength piece of it. There's a piece about vulnerability, where one thing that I've recognized, that the ability to truly feel into shit and be vulnerable, it's not something that we need to be called fucking pussies or whatever. Like, you truly feel into the emotions. That's the tough work. We talk to a lot of guys about that. It's tough to dig deep and go through that shit. It's not an easy thing to be able to do. So I believe that the vulnerability piece is certainly a spot within the definition of masculinity. There's a space for leadership, leading not only yourself in the right direction, leading your family, leading your children if you're a father, leading people in the community, like being able to step up and take charge in situations and understand there are times that you'll have to follow along when somebody has more information or that's more of the wheelhouse. So there's the strength, there's the vulnerability, there's leadership, and the last two pieces are relationships. And relationships is one, and I think about at the end of our journey on this planet, in this world, no one looks back and says, I wish I spent another day working. I wish I spent more time waxing my car or fucking picking out a granite countertop. Or you look back and say, I wish I spent more time with loved ones, with friends, with family. So while we're here as men, we need to honor and foster positive, productive relationships with people in a really deep, meaningful way. So relationships. And then the last is being attached to something larger than yourself, being attached to something where you can do something to give back to others. You can do something where your legacy on this planet is not just you were born, you worked for 60 years, you retired, and you moved down to Florida. You had a couple kids along the way, and maybe you see them on Christmas and Thanksgiving. It needs to be something deeper, legacy that you're leaving when you're done on this planet. How often will people speak your name and remember you with being a man of integrity, with a man of honor that has done something to perpetuate this message to the next generation?
Whew. That's powerful stuff, dude. That's awesome.
Yeah, I totally forgot we were going to talk about our definitions of masculinity, and that my definition has changed several different times, but I would settle on, if those are 5 circles where they all meet up in the center, is that sweet spot.
Beautiful. Take notes, boys. It's what it is. 100 episodes in, that's what we got out of it. I'm sure 100 later we'll come up with a new definition, but that sounds pretty damn good to me.
So we'll see you back here next year around the same time. We'll be 200 episodes in. By that time, we'll be syndicated. We'll have our own channel. TV.
What does syndicated mean?
I don't even. I guess it's like released on other platforms, and it's like.
Okay.
Is that what it is? Syndicated?
Dude, I don't know.
Sounds good.
I haven't asked you what a thing means in a while, so I felt like you said a word, and I was like, I don't know what that is.
Syndication.
I'm just being authentic and vulnerable right now.
I love it. So do you want to take us out?
Sure. Thank you for listening to the Building Men podcast. As always, we appreciate the listeners. I don't even know what I'm saying. I just tune you out at the end, so I never really know how you close it out. But yeah, so thank you for listening to our 100th episode. Dude, I'm done. I can't fucking do it. Just end it.
All right. Thank you for listening to the Building Men podcast. Go a step further than you thought you can go. That's the piece we're missing. We'll see you next time on
Flag.
Building Men.